Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to have you here today and for this conversation with Erica and Molly. I'm Allison Torbett. I'm a partner and then co-leader of the environmental team here at Nixon Peabody, and I'm also on the board of Legal Sustainability Network. It's been a pretty busy time in Legal Sustainability Network. We replaced our director and are moving forward lots of programming, including today's discussion on sustainability, economics, and pro bono. So we'll be diving into two amazing pro bono organizations, Green Pro Bono and Lawyers for Sustainable Economy, both of which I've had the pleasure of working with for over 5 years with LLC and, 15 actually with Green Pro Bono. I looked it up for this discussion today. So excited for that background. You do the next slide, please. And some other highlights, we did recently launch the carbon calculator, which just came out, so that's available for everyone. This is a free tool available through our website, which helps actually calculate your carbon emissions. So instead of hiring a vendor to help you out with that, it's available for you now. There are recorded trainings available to you from the webinars that were held in February. And we'll be having more training webinars available for real-time questions in April, May, and June. So again, the carbon calculator is a huge thing, so please join us and enjoy that. And then with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So our speakers today are Molly Milius from Lawyers for Sustainable Economy and Erica Raz from Green Pro Bono. So when I started out as a baby lawyer here at Nixon Peabody in 2010, I was working with Carolyn Kaplan at the time, who was one of the founders of Legal Sustainability Network. And she was the chief sustainability officer at the time in Nixon Peabody, an amazing woman. And between her and then Bruce Zillman, was a partner in our Boston office, one of my mentors, now deceased, and I still get very sad just thinking about that. But she was based in Boston, and she talked about this great new subject, the Green Pro Bono was starting up. And she was like, they're starting this new organization. They're going to connect us with startups and local nonprofits that are in this environmental climate change space, exactly where we want it to be. So with that, I was set up as to be the connection with Green Pro Bono and receive emails every 2-3 weeks. They're not overly obsessive, exactly the right amount of communications to say, hey, I want to help out with this organization. And it's just amazing. So Eric is actually in the Chicago group and Chicago, let's say office, or at least Chicago location now. But I'm here to pass it over to Erica to talk about Green Pro Bono.
Thank you, Allison. Please tell me that you are reviewing a full slide.
Like yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
Perfect. As Allison mentioned, my name is Erica Spangler Raz. I'm the Pro Bono advisor at Green Pro Bono. And we are legal aid for climate innovators. As Allison had mentioned, this organization has been around since 2010. I'm going to see if I can get to the next slide here. Since 2010. And really, for the first 10 years, it was a volunteer-run organization. And so in 2020, there's been a huge sprint in growth. So we've had, we added paid staff in 2020, and then in 2023, we now have full-time staff. So it's just been truly amazing to see the growth after many years of volunteers who are really passionate about this work, kind of filling in and doing their own passion projects for this. So since our founding, we have helped more than 250 environmental organizations with pro bono impact of 3.3 million, and our pro bono network is more than 275 attorneys and law firms. So what the business model is really kind of removing any kind of legal barriers so that climate entrepreneurs can create climate positive environmental sustainability solutions. And so the social entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs can really focus on what they do best and remove that legal expertise through which the volunteers can provide that support. Anything that is necessary to combat climate change is what we're doing. So we really consider this very, very broad in our client criteria. So how we work is really through two referral pipelines. So I'm going to talk about how we get our clients our screening process, and then how anyone can get involved. So first thing is our referral pipelines. So we have close partnerships with incubators and accelerators and environmental justice groups that share the information that we have for technical assistance in particular areas and expertise, and other types of legal needs that organizations may have. So we have a close partnership with these accelerators and incubators so that they know what our eligibility criteria are, and they can identify with the entrepreneurs or the nonprofit organizations that they're working with when we would be a good resource for them. And the second way that we receive clients is directly through our website. So we want to, and I'll say this again, we want to eliminate any kind of gatekeeping to access pro bono legal services. So with our direct inquiries on our website, there is an application process, and we go through and have individual client conversations. Everybody that is doing intake is a licensed attorney. It is not an intake specialist. It is someone who is able to really issue spot and identify readiness for placement with a pro bono attorney for this specifically scoped out legal work. So our client eligibility criteria really mirrors a lot of other pro bono client eligibility criteria. If any of your firms have pro bono counsel that are members of ABCO, it's the mission matter means test that we're kind of using. So our 3 factors is really kind of mirror this: our mission, financial need, and client type. So we really want to remain flexible on what that is, and we consider that very broad. I'll give an example for that. So for example, on the mission-driven criteria that we have, we want to look for organizations whose work is rooted in a social justice mission and is climate positive. So we consider that broadly in a way because when we worked with an organization that did public health and work and created syringes that were a smaller size that then led to a smaller footprint on the planet in their supply chain and distribution, because they had climate-centric metrics to be able to say what their reduced footprint was, we considered them eligible for green pro bono. With that mission-driven work, when we talk with the clients, we really do ask them what their impact is and how they measure their impact on the environment. And we also do pay attention particularly for social enterprises or that for-profit structures, to make sure we're not seeing any kind of greenwashing or any unintended harm to the communities that we really want to be served by the clients that we're working with. And then the second criteria is that financial need. So based on the client type, so some of these criteria are related. So based on the client type, it could be different financial criteria that we're looking at. The financial data that we're looking at is self-reported. We know, working with law firms, that when you work with one law firm, you're working with one law firm. And so law firms have specific criteria that they're looking for to be able to kind of check the box for their pro bono initiatives. And so we will work with law firms to be able to do that. So if there are backup documentation that you need to verify, protect like income of an entrepreneur, to make sure that they're eligible for pro bono legal services, we are happy to facilitate that. But just know that on our intake process, we try to remove as many barriers as possible for folks that are trying to access legal services, and then we will fill in wherever we need whenever we need to do that. And then the third prong is kind of the type of client. And as I mentioned, that's related to the mission-driven aspect and the financial need aspect. So nonprofits and community-based organizations or community organizations, even if they're nationwide, so some of our referral partners are actually global, nationwide and global. We want to see that their mission has few resources or little resources. I'm sorry, the mission is in line with what we're doing, and that the organization itself has few resources or little resources to be able to pay for legal services. So particularly on the nonprofit side, when they are receiving grants or other types of donations, they might be restricted to programs. And if an organization is paying for legal services, that would come out of their general operating funds, and they may not have as much of a buffer. And by relieving that piece of it, by providing pro bono legal services, we can allow those scarce dollars in that GenOps bucket to go a little bit further. But we are going to look at that for those organizations. So we're also looking at whether they've worked with a volunteer on a pro bono basis before, or whether they've paid for legal services before. And we kind of go through those conversations in the intake process. And then for profits or social enterprises, we want to make sure that there's some type of measurable client impact, and that they, whatever profits are generated after, after their operations, that it's reinvested into that environmental purpose. The other thing that we do want to look at is whether the scope of the legal services for a for-profit, which is a little bit different, that is time specific or very matter specific, so that we can address scope creep, which is actually what we'll have a little bit later. So how volunteers get involved with us is, and the benefit of Green Pro Bono, which I was super excited about, is that we work with individual attorneys, in-house attorneys, retired attorneys. We are not a membership-based organization in that, your law firm doesn't have to be a member of Green Pro Bono. We invite you to bring your expertise to, help these organizations and these entrepreneurs. So you can fill out a form on our website and just, give us your background, your information, the expertise areas that you have. And then we'll send you on a weekly basis a curated list of pro bono opportunities. You can either monitor that list going forward, and see if there's something that piques your interest, or if you want to share the list with other folks that that may be interested or may want to sign up, you are more than welcome to do that. As I mentioned about our intake, on the client side, we do have a placement meeting with our clients when a volunteer is interested. So based on that list, if you receive the list, how you get involved is you can reply to the list your interest in taking on a particular matter, and then we'll kind of have a conversation to see if you have the requisite expertise. And what we do is we talk with the client to make sure that they're getting the right expertise. They've got a volunteer that has the bandwidth to be able to help them. And then we will attend a placement meeting. So we'll help with scheduling that meeting. We will attend that meeting, make sure that everybody's on the same page regarding scope, representation, things like that. We also, as part of that handoff meeting, we will help you get all the things that you need to do for your firm, like your conflicts checks and your pro bono approval process. So we're here to support you throughout that process. And then after that meeting, then you would have a pro bono engagement letter executed with the client. And then we remain as a resource throughout, the pro bono relationship. Now, I had mentioned earlier about scope creep, because that does happen. And so just as you can imagine with anybody that's receiving free legal services, and legal services are very unaffordable for the clients that we serve. So there may be some one-off requests. And that kind of tends to happen in the pro bono space. And so what we would ask our volunteers to do is, and we do mention this in the meeting, is that we say, if there's anything that's outside the scope of what we talked about today, or what we're having for this particular representation, come back to us and just let us know. It is certainly fine, and we are so glad when our volunteers are able to take on additional work, but just let us know about it, because what may happen is that there may be an additional request, and there may be a point where you or your firm does not have the requisite expertise, or doesn't have the bandwidth, or maybe it's not quite right, where you feel a little bit like I'm beyond what I can do right now. We will help with that client. We will rescreen, re-intake, and replace the matter for whatever that new matter is. So we always want to make sure that we are communicating with all of the clients that we place, and we manage, expectations around that. I, for some reason, cannot see if there's any questions, so I'm going to keep going. So other ways that you can collaborate with us and kind of support the work that we're doing. The core work that we're doing is that matching process, that general distribution, and that pro bono matching process. But we also offer clinic or office hour style engagement. So this is, so clinics are typically one where we're going to customize based on say, for example, your firm, or if there's particular like a corporate client that you have that you want to put together a clinic, we'll have those conversations with you. In the past, Green Pro Bono has done intellectual property clinics. So the clinics could be customized by a particular theme. It could be a particular substantive area. They could be more of that bite-sized pro bono, so they're going to be more time limited. Or it could be like reviewing bylaws for a certain number of organizations. Once we have that conversation, that we will customize, a clinic with you or your organization or with your firm, then we will go and screen clients that would then be served within that clinic. So typically there's going to be a small number of clients that fit the specific eligibility criteria that we work out with you to be able to do that clinic. Another way that we are collaborating with law firms and other types of legal and green expertise is we are doing special projects. So one of the special projects that we have right now is the Boston Impact Initiative. We're working with a cohort of women and minority-owned businesses that are transitioning into clean energy. So we are looking for law firms and other partners to support the various legal needs that come up with these business owners that are moving into the clean energy. And so if you or your firm are interested in participating in something like that, please reach out. My email is there, but Stephanie is the executive director, Stephanie at greenprobono.org. So if you're interested in working on that particular special project, but there are other special projects that come up throughout the year. Special projects tend to be based on an initiative with one of our incubators or accelerators or client groups. And clinics tend to be more based on the criteria that we've developed with a particular law firm or a corporate in-house team or something like that. So that's the distinction. And then trainings. So every year we put on a training. Our next one is coming up on Earth Day, appropriately. And so I'll have a slide on that as well. And so this is an opportunity to get CLE. We usually partner with a law firm to offer the CLE. And we really kind of go through how can anyone who doesn't work in the environmental field be able to lend their skills and their passion for climate positive work. And so I encourage you to sign up for that CLE that's coming up. So this slide right now is just a sampling of the pro bono matches that we have done. You will see that we've got some that are nonprofit organizations. We've got some that are social enterprises. They run the gamut as far as the legal work that is needed. It could be, formation. It could be an employment handbook. It could be, understanding the liability insurance that they need. There's really just a huge variety of the things that come through. And the best way to kind of see some of the opportunities is to sign up for that distribution list. And then finally, I mentioned our CLE, our annual CLE that we do on Earth Day. So it's called the Climate Pro Bono Bootcamp. We have several partners and sponsors for this event coming up. It is virtual, it is free. Tell your friends. I think we had something like 700 attorneys attend on the last one. So please feel free to use the QR code and register. We're going to share the slide deck, so you'll get the QR codes and the links as well. Just a heads up on the format for this. It is 2 days. There's different sections that you can attend. You can attend some, you can attend all. It's really up to you on the registration. The first day is primarily focused on policy and impact litigation. So I know not everybody is that. I'm a transactional lawyer myself. And then the second day is focused on kind of like the corporate real estate, employment, all those other types of transactional work and legal skills and issue areas and things like that. So I think with that, I have a question slide, but I'm actually going to turn it over to Allison. I don't know if you want me to do questions or want to go through with Molly first.
Lots of quick question on that boot camp. Is it meant for other attorneys that are helping you, or is it also for the intake clients as well that you're looking to get involved?
Very good question. This is really more for the CLE side. So it's really more for the attorneys and volunteers getting involved. We are it is open for anybody to register. We're not saying, are you an attorney? So there could be folks that are attending that are not attorneys, but that's not who our target audience is for this particular CLE event. And this is the training for kind of volunteer attorneys. That's a really good question, though.
Excellent. And then I learned a lot. So thank you. There's stuff even I didn't know, despite 15 years of working with you guys. So on the intake process, do you guys do both a questionnaire and the interview, or is it written and oral, or how does that work?
Yeah, so when we have folks we have folks submit an application because that gives us the written document, and then we will have a follow-up phone call with them or Zoom, just kind of depending. And usually that's because we almost always have clarification questions that, based on somebody submitting this, they're going to give us a paragraph or they're going to give us 2 sentences. And sometimes we want to be able to flush out what those legal needs are. And then also check on the readiness for legal services. So sometimes I have this idea, but I'm not really further along in that. So that's kind of the question. But it's both. So.
I do feel like the quality of the clients that you bring to us have always been very high. So the intake process is working. So thank you.
Yeah, it's good to know.
Excellent. Thank you. And we'll bring it over to Molly now for the sustainable economy. This is a Stanford think tank idea that came out in 2018. When I first read about it, we immediately called Molly actually and said, hey, how do we get involved? You already had some law firms signed up, and I'm like, I want to be there as well. So with that, Molly, hope you give some background on Roy's sustainable economy.
Yes, great. Let me see if I can share my slides. Of course, is now not letting me do the slideshow, so 1 second.
Take your time.
Well, I don't know if I'm gonna do my slides. It really was working before, but hey. How about now?
Yeah, perfect.
Got them? They're not very attractive anyway, so you wouldn't have been missing out on too much. But thanks for the intro. I am Molly Melius. I'm an environmental attorney. I usually joke that I'm a recovering environmental litigator, actually, which is what I spent most of the last 15 years doing. But since I started running this initiative back in 2018, I've kind of been transitioning over into the transactional space in the sustainability world. So the initiative, as Allison mentioned, was formed back in 2018 at the Global Climate Action Summit by Karen Skelton, who most recently was at the DOE, and David Hayes, who is the former Deputy Secretary of the Interior, and a few others who were trying to think about how different non-state actors could be working with elected officials at the state and local level to support climate initiatives, and in particular, how law firms could be kind of more tied into supporting climate initiatives. As we all know, law firms usually are not at the leading edge of innovation, and so not that much or not as much was being done to support that as we felt it could, because pro bono has obviously been traditionally thought of more as direct support for indigent individuals and for other nonprofit organizations. So the focus of this was really, okay, how can we get law firms to support more corporate transactional work for both nonprofits and for-profits in the climate and sustainability space? So we started with 9 law firms back in 2018, and now we have 22 firms in the initiative and have supported 214 startups and nonprofits, which is exciting. And we also work with corporate and nonprofit partners. I think probably pretty similar to the way Green Pro Bono works with their partnership networks. This is largely in accessing different people who are working on these sustainability ideas and who might need legal support. Last year, we also expanded the initiative to include an experiential education piece at Stanford. So prior to that, it was mostly me doing the intake with these nonprofits and for-profits and then sending them out to law firms in the initiative, which is great. But we were also seeing a lot of Stanford student teams and Stanford recent alum teams who were looking for help. And I thought, oh, wouldn't it be fun if the Stanford students here at the law school were actually supporting the Stanford Business School students and Stanford Design School students and Stanford Sustainability School students in getting these ventures off the ground. And at the time, we did not have any kind of startup clinic or anything that was supporting entities like that. So we are now on our 6th quarter. We kind of offer it as a year-round service almost, not exclusively for Stanford affiliated startups, but often it works out that that's who we're supporting. And the services that we do within this smaller subset of the program, I'll call it a class, are pretty simple stuff. It really has to be things that we can get the students up to speed on and able to do in the space of an 8 or 9 week quarter. So usually we're looking at formation and incorporation, equity issuance, IP assignments, hiring advisors and consultants, fundraising on a safe, those really early legal needs that you usually see. And then letting them know like when they need to talk to immigration and when they need to talk to trademark attorneys, et cetera. Actually, I'll go back to this slide. If the needs are more complicated than that, which they often are, we will refer folks who apply into our class out to the Lawyers for a Sustainable Economy initiative. So it's this pretty great. So we get applications in through the Lawyers for a Sustainable Economy initiative. We get applications in through Startup Law Sustainability, but we try to place folks where the expertise is most fitting. So really similar to Green Pro Bono, which is, by design, when we were getting the initiative off the ground, we talked with Green Pro Bono and we talked with Trust Law Network and we talked with Start Small, Think Big and really thought about the eligibility criteria and tried to align with what everyone else was doing, noting, as Erica did, that law firms each have their own pro bono thresholds. Some will only support nonprofits, some will only support for-profits with low-income entrepreneurs, and others are more flexible and will support mission-aligned for-profits that just don't have a lot of funding yet. So those are our 3 basic categories. For nonprofits, we don't have any funding eligibility cutoff. It's kind of like if you're a nonprofit, and are doing work in this space, we assume that you are good to go. We do allow people to kind of check the box that they're low income entrepreneurs because, as I mentioned, some firms are looking for that. And then I do ask them to send along like a redacted W-2 or a redacted tax return to kind of show us that they're low income. We are a little more flexible in terms of the what constitutes low income. I think ABCO and Pro Bono Institute maybe have like a 300% of federal poverty guidelines cutoff, and we use a 500% of that for our cutoff, in part because a lot of the folks that we are talking to are from major metropolitan areas and being, what the federal government considers a poverty guideline and what I might consider a poverty guideline are a little bit different. So that's kind of where we land on that. And then finally, if you're a mission aligned for profit, working in this space and really as your primary purpose doing things in this space, and you haven't raised a lot of money, you are also eligible. And just like Erica said, we try to be flexible. We don't have any hard and fast cutoff on how much money raised for a lot of reasons. First, because if you are a software company and you've raised a couple $100,000, like maybe you have plenty of money for getting legal help. But if you are a hard tech company, like many of the climate folks are, and it's going to cost you $1 million just to do your first pilot, like that's obviously a different financial situation. So we are flexible. If I think it's kind of close to the line where they've raised more money than maybe most firms would be comfortable with, I usually call it out in my email to the firms. And I just say, hey, I think this might be either a pro bono or a low bono opportunity. Here's the situation. If you're interested, it's kind of up to you to decide, because ultimately the firms are making the judgment call on whether it's a pro bono engagement. This is our website here, lawyersforsustainability.com. So you can see a little more details about the eligibility criteria if you're curious. Again, very similar process to the Green Pro Bono program. And often if we can't match people, we'll refer people to Green Pro Bono or to Trust Law or to other pro bono networks. I mean, the goal here is really just to get as many climate initiatives off the ground as possible. So I feel like we're all like, swimming in the same direction. So you fill out the intake application, and then they have a Zoom with me generally to go over and clarify the legal needs and just to get a feel for the client and if it would be a good experience for the attorneys working with the client. These are the most common requests that I see. It's not limited to this, but this is what we see a lot. A lot of questions around structuring and formation, selecting the right entity or converting from one entity to another. Lots of times people will start out as an LLC and then be ready to fundraise and VC fundraising, and then obviously need to convert to a C corporation. So that's something we see a lot. A lot of questions around reviewing various commercial contracts. These can vary, but partnership agreements, supplier agreements, different things like that. Fundraising advice, reviewing term sheets and fundraising agreements, employment agreements, and sometimes we'll actually also get questions on environmental regulations and what the laws are in different jurisdictions. And I don't push those out a lot, but if it's kind of close to summer associate time when I know you all have lots of lower cost legal help and time you're trying to fill with actual like meaningful, interesting projects, then I might send those out. And finally, we get a lot of questions for IP support. And these are often the hardest to place, I would say. Obviously, IP attorneys are really busy and there are conflicts issues here. And full patent prosecution is a very time-intensive process. So I try to break it down for people who are applying and just say, hey, you're probably going to need to do paid IP counsel if that's what you're looking for. But if you're looking for provisional patent help or trademark registration or copyrights or licensing negotiations, those are more likely to be able to be matched. I took some screenshots from our annual report, some recent matters. These are matters that came in both through our initiative and that the law firms heard about through other means, but just wanted to highlight some of their work here. Lots of land conservation, supporting entrepreneurs, supporting urban agriculture. I'll send these around so I won't spend time going through them, but lots of cool things, especially Nixon Peabody greening the World Cup. Very exciting. Does that mean somebody can get me a ticket? Because that would be awesome.
I wish that was a perk.
Oh, I love it. I was at the Euro Cup last summer with my kids and my husband, and I was like, it's probably easier to get these tickets than it will be to get World Cup tickets in, the Bay Area. But here's a few more. So I'll just keep on going. But we do try to survey our pro bono recipients every year and kind of get a sense of how it went. Sometimes they fill it out anonymously, sometimes they don't, but just want to hear how things are going, if anything could be managed better, on our end or kind of in the handoff from us to the firm or in follow-up. But most people have been really happy and satisfied, which is great. And yeah, I didn't go into too many details because really it's super similar to the process for what Green Pro Bono is doing. One of the main differences is that we don't do those kind of office hours and we don't do trainings typically, although sometimes we do. Last year we did do a lot of trainings around the Inflation Reduction Act. But these are our sponsors, and I have one more to add as of yesterday, Ropes Gray. So that's exciting, and we have really appreciated the support from Nixon Peabody and Beveridge and Diamond and others here on the list. So I'm gonna stop sharing, and if anybody has any questions, let me know.
I have one question for both you and Erica. We talked about scope creep a little bit.
Yes.
The for-profit startups in some ways are the ones that I think need the help the most because they're trying to figure out how to get it. They don't even know what questions to ask, let alone what lawyers to be hiring for that.
Yeah.
But obviously the goal of the startup is to not be a startup for long, to actually become a full-fledged, profit company. And so I know that we've struggled with that with the startups we've brought on from both groups of how do we transition them from that startup process to actually being a paying client. We had some success, so that's like win on both things. The company's doing well, and now we're actually got a new, paying client we didn't have before. But I'm curious about if you've dealt with that before and your suggestions and hints to law firms who are taking on these clients in that kind of for-profit space.
I think this is a hard issue, and what I started to do a few years ago is just say to the clients like, look, this is not your typical lawyer relationship, right? You're not going to get a letter that says, you know, I'm going to bill you $900 an hour and I will bill as many $900 an hour as you want, right? That's not how this goes. It's not a general counsel relationship. It's going to be a very specifically scoped engagement. And sure, that it's possible that it's a great relationship and you might ask for something additional and they might be willing to provide it, but that's not part of the initial agreement. And just to expect that like this is it, like the universe of things that we've agreed to is kind of what you should expect to get. Um, and some firms do flip them into paying clients, and then some firms don't. They keep like a wall up with their pro bono and non pro bono clients. So that's maybe they're probably like really strict then about sort of how they scope it. But that's just kind of what I say to people. And then sometimes it'll flip into a paid relationship, like as soon as you raise a certain amount of money, and that's something you'll have to discuss with the firm. We face this issue in our class a lot actually too with scope creep because there's no like way to like monetize it, right? Like we're not like gonna flip them into paying clients or anything. And we manage that by having our engagement be time limited. So it's limited to the quarter. And like if we don't get to like all the things they need, you know, we get to like our bullets, but if they're like asking for this and this and this, we're like, well, you know, the quarter is over. So you have to re-engage if we are able to accommodate you next quarter.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I know for us, we often do it. We'll do like, okay, we'll do like up to 5,000 or 10,000 in pro bono services. And then we can reassess, you know, where you are and where we are. Although it takes us actually going back and tracking that, which is not an easily available. I mean, we can go and do it, but it takes us time to do so and someone paying attention. You know, do you think to add to that, Erica?
Yeah, so Molly's absolutely correct. This is like one of the most difficult things. What I have, seen in the past is that when you have one of these clients come in where they're for profit and they're expected to grow significantly in a short period of time, which is a really, really good thing, you have that conversation early on, just like Molly had said. The other thing that has been good is if you put in the engagement letter that you will assess on an annual basis their financial situation. So every year they're going to have to, reconfirm that they're eligible for pro bono based on that. And then based on, you could even put this in the engagement letter of whether you would have, if it flips to a particular low bono for whatever that firm's criteria are, what that rate would be on particular matter. So if you have the early conversations, it can be a little bit smoother, but the key piece is to at least do it on an annual basis, if not more often, depending on the growth plans for that particular client. And then also make sure that it's clear in the engagement letter. So time specific, but also financial, dependent as well.
Excellent. That's very helpful.
That's a great idea. Agreed.
And I think there's some, I mean, for the nonprofits, for us also, like if there's like, heavy litigation, like that doesn't really fit in with what we normally do for pro bono. But sometimes we'll do like low bono, like we call it, like, that's like half of our rates. So you're still getting some money in the door, but not quite the same. And I wonder how, that doesn't quite match the metrics, but you guys do report back to you guys, of course.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you're in litigation, obviously, those hours build quickly. As I mentioned, as a recovering environmental litigator, so I know how that goes. And some nonprofits are really well resourced, right? So again, that's each firm's policies are different on that, and we defer to you all.
Out of straight curiosity, have you guys talked together before, like LLC and Green Pro Bono?
No, not on the same panel.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we love it. I think there's probably a collaboration coming up.
I know. I mean, I refer people out to you guys all the time. I'm like, I didn't get a taker. Like, try these guys.
And I know Stephanie's referred folks to Molly too. So it's like we really just want the clients to be served. So
yeah,
right. We have the same goals in mind, right? It's just to make it
right.
Exactly.
Well, any questions from our audience? I'll open it up if anyone has anything they want to add to us. If not, since we are recording it, anything else that Molly or Eric you want to add? I want to make sure we give you the chance, and we'll also send this out with the recording and ways for people to get more involved and sign up to become, more law firms. I think you already had 200 each, but always could have more help. I know. So
Yeah, contact us and contact Erica, and we're excited to keep the climate and sustainability initiatives moving along.
yeah, it needs all the help it can get these days.
Exactly.
So.
Same. I want to do one last plug for our Earth Day Climate Pro Bono Bootcamp. And just thank you again, Allison. And I don't know if Mike is still on, but thank you so much for, allowing us to come and share about our program and our clients. We're doing great work.
You
Awesome.
are.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. We're excited to put this up in the members area on the website.
Great. Take care.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.